I'm glad to see you all today. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. All right, so today we're going to talk about libraries. Oh, thank you. Thank you everyone for the well wishes. Replit as always. And then we've been talking about this for a little bit, but you should have received a Google Calendar invite, but if not, that's okay. It is a week from today, our optional bonus meeting at 6 p.m. August 8th. And we're going to be talking about my personal experience with autism and neurodiversity and stuff, and other topics that you bring and want to discuss. So I'm really looking forward to that. I hope you enjoy it. I don't know yet if it will be recorded or not. It kind of just depends on how everything goes, because if people want to ask personal questions or something, I don't necessarily want to like record it and post it to YouTube. So we're still debating on that. But next Monday, August 8th, after our course has ended, which is crazy that we've already made it to the end of the summer. Okay, and yeah, so I'm getting some messages in. No, this is completely optional. Yeah. So if you're not able to make it, that is a-okay. It's just for people that were interested in talking about neurodiversity as an extra outside class. So if you can't make it, that is a-okay. All right. And so we have today, and then on Thursday is our actual last class, which is insane. And so I took a quick poll, and based off of that, on Thursday, we're going to talk about how to debug your code. And then if we have enough time, we'll also look at working with data in Python and kind of get a glimpse of how I use Python for data science. So kind of mixing 3 of our extra topics into one class. So hope to see you there. I'll also be sending out an exit survey. It'll just be like, what did you think of the class? Did you enjoy it? Do you have any suggestions for improvement? Stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that on Thursday. I'll probably release that survey during class then. So if you're not able to make it to class, I'll still try to send you that survey. So let me know. All right. So from last week, we talked about file handling. And this is normally where I say, does anyone have questions about what we talked about last week? We're going to go over it a bit because we did kind of rush right through it. But feel free to let me know if you need a question answered or you didn't 100% understand what we did. Also, the slides that I've been going through, these are the slides from last Monday, and then the ones that I have on libraries, I just put into the Discord. I completely forgot to put it on the calendar today. So if you need it, maybe someone can put it in the Zoom chat, or I can put it in the Zoom chat once we get back to those slides. So last week we talked about file handling, which is just a fancy way of saying dealing with files in Python. We looked at this little visual diagram here where we talked about when we work with files in Python, it creates what's called a file object. And then we read that object into Python. We write it, we write something to it. We do whatever we need to do with the file, and then we close it. So this is our basic workflow. So we have open, do whatever you need to do, and then close with file object.close. And so if we want to look at code, then this is the code version of that where we open it with the open function. Remember that you're putting in the path to your file as a string. And then, I still need to change this to R+. I changed it in other places, but this should be R+ for read plus writing permissions. If you just want to read one line, we talked about fo.readLine. You can print it. You can write to that line, whatever you want to do. But then at the end, you close it. So we talked about that. Now, is there any questions over how this code works? Okay, so I see, yes, I will be talking about, so I'm going through the slides from last week. I'm just reviewing them right now, and then I will talk about how we do the task at the end. We'll also do a couple more examples, so don't worry. Okay. So another option for opening files, I briefly talked about this, that's with. I'm using the with and as keyword, so you can say with open, and your file with the permissions as file object or FO. And that automatically closes it for you at the end. So you'll indent your code here, and then you don't have to do the fo.close. It'll just automatically close it for you. So this is really good if you just want a very concise way of opening your file and then manipulating it, but not necessarily closing it. Okay. And then we also talked about some general tips at the very end. Some of you had to hop off at this point, but I wanted to make sure you know you have to specify the relative path to your file. So that's relative to your little Python, like .py file. So in Replit it's called main.py. The starting directory is where that Python file is. And if you are dealing with files and you know the file exists, but Python is saying it doesn't, most likely what is wrong is that your path to the file is wrong. So check the file path when you're opening it. And also remember that if you open your file with W, that will erase previous contents. So if your file already had something written inside of it and then you open it with W, it'll just overwrite all of that. So you really want to be on the lookout for that. Also, all of this works with .txt files. So we're not opening PDFs or docx or anything, just txt. Okay, so yeah, I will show you an example. We didn't get to these examples here. Let's see. Okay, so hopefully you can see my Replit. So I wanted to show you first. So I have this example here where it says, where'd it go? Searching a file. So I want to show you how you can search for a specific string or like word in a file. First, let's just remember how to open this. So if I want to do, so I've named a string here, my file name. That's generally good practice so that you can change the name of your file up here if that changes, but then you don't have to change like the code opening the file. So I'm going to use our with command with the with open. So I'm going to say with open. Now I can just say file name. I'm going to say comma. I'm going to say R, so I don't want to write anything to the file name. Make sure my parentheses match up. I say with open file name as FO, colon. Now everything inside here is going to be what we want to do with the file. So right now I'm just going to remind you how to do, how to just read everything in a file. Does anyone want to put in the chat what I would put here if I want to read all of the contents of the file? It's been a whole week, so it's okay. Yeah, okay, yeah. So I see fo.read. Yeah, so if we do fo.read, that will just read all of the contents of the file. You don't want to do here, fo.read. You don't want to do that if your file is really big, because then Python will have to load it all up, and if it's huge, then Python will crash or something. Depends on how big it is. A better way to read some files is read line, because that just does one line at a time. That's actually probably the most common way that people interact with files, is to just read 1 or 2 lines at a time. So we're going to do fo.readLine. And a good way to save that line, if you want to look at it, you can say line equals fo.readLine. And now we are going through our file, and we can read the first line here. So just a little review. So I've made this example file called grocerylist.txt, and it has, I just put some grocery items in here, milk, eggs, butter, cat food, etc. And so if I want to open this and check if eggs are on my grocery list, then I want to go through each line and read the line, see if it contains eggs, and then return the line that it's on. So I'm going to let you think about this for a bit. We're going to go through each line, so that maybe you'll think about how to go through each line in there, maybe a loop. And then we want to check if one of the lines is equal to eggs and return what line it is on. So does anyone have an idea what kind of loop we want to use if we want to go through each line in a file? Yeah, a lot of suggestions came in. Great job, everyone. I feel like a lot of times I've been asking what kind of loop is it, and it's always a for loop. You don't always need for loops, but they're very useful for situations like this. Yeah, good job. And yeah, we want to see if the line equals eggs. So great job. You guys are doing great. So we're gonna have we have opened our file, and now we're gonna write a for loop. So we want to say for line in. Okay, hold on. My brain just broke. I need water. I think I got ahead of myself because we haven't read in the file yet. Okay, there's a better way to do it, and I'm going to show you that now. Yeah. Okay. So actually, we're going to use a while loop. I take back what I said. We're going to use a while loop, and I'll show you why. This is because we haven't read in the whole file yet. When we work with lists, we can use a for loop, and I'll show you that later, because later we're going to read this in as a list, and then we can use a for loop. I'm going to show you this as a while loop, so excuse me. So this time, I asked a question, the answer was a while loop, but it sounded like it should have been a for loop. Sorry if that's confusing, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to set, so we want to go through lines. So a common way to iterate throughout a file is to set your variable at the very beginning. So we're going to say line equals, we're going to make it like an empty string. Now we're going to say open the file. And to be able to go through and tell, oh, my indentation got off. To be able to go through and tell if the file has ended or not, you can say while line does not equal empty string. We're actually going to make that a space. And so this is going to run while our line doesn't equal nothing. So if we read the next line and there's nothing in it, then line will start to equal nothing. I'll show you what I mean. I wanted to show you this. I knew why I wanted to show you this example. This is because I see a lot of professors doing this. So while line does not equal an empty string, ours has a space. We're going to say line equals fo.readLine. Now we want to check if it's equal to eggs. So we say if line equals eggs. Now we want to do something here that tells us where it equals eggs. So we need some sort of counter that tells us what line we're on. So I'm going to set up a counter up here. So I'm going to say count equals 0. We're going to be like Python, and we're going to start on 0. So line equals fo.readLine. If the line is equal to eggs, we want to print eggs is on line. And then we want to print what line number it is. At the bottom here, we need to make sure that we update count. So this is jumping right into it. I'm going to go over what I did real quick because it was different than what I said, and I apologize for misspeaking. But first, so we've set up our file name. That's grocerylist.txt. We want to set up a line. Right now it's just a dummy variable because we want to go through each line. So we just make it a space, and that's okay. We also set up a counting variable to count the lines. So now we're going to say we're going to open the file name as the file object. While this line is not nothing, read that line. If the line is eggs, we're checking if eggs is on the grocery list, then print that eggs is on line and print the line number because we have this count variable. But if it's not, it'll go down here and count will increment by 1 each time. So a little different than how we've used while loops before. But I do see people do this a lot. Oh, and I need colon there. I do see people use this a lot when dealing with files, is they check while this is not equal to empty string. And I'm going to show you a couple ways to do this. So if this way doesn't make sense, we'll learn another way as well. And if you want here, you could put break, because once we find eggs, we can leave the loop. But if you don't want to do that, that is okay. You don't have to have that in there. Okay, so let's run this and see what it does. It did. Oh, I called main. It did nothing. Why did it do nothing? Oh. Oh, it could be because there's some sort of like, could be that. Yep. So one thing to look out for is that when you're dealing with files, it does encode the new line characters. So we had to watch for that. So yeah, someone said we could do plus equals. Yeah, I did this for clarity, but you could also do plus equals. So yeah, beyond the, it encoded this as white space. So you could also do like we learned some other string methods where you do stop strip, which gets rid of leading white space or trailing white space. Let's see if that helps us out here. And it does. So if you don't remember this, that's okay. This is just getting rid of leading and trailing white space, and it's a really good method if you're comparing strings. Okay, so that is this one, and I know I just kind of threw this at you, and we're not gonna, this is our last structured class that's built into, you know, what we've been planning on this summer. So this is, you know, probably the most complicated thing that we'll do with files. And if you don't completely understand it, that's okay. You can ask me questions about it. It's not something that you'll have to do a whole lot if you're not dealing with files, but I wanted to show you this. Okay, so someone asked what poetry.lock is. That is just a file that Replit creates that helps it like run your Python code. So that's all it is. Okay, so go back to this. Searching a file. Okay, I'm trying to think if I want to do this other example, but I think this really wrapped up what you want to do with files. And I want you to focus on this one as an example instead of moving on to a bunch of other ones. So yeah, does read line move to the next line every time it is called? Yes, so in Python, it has a cursor whenever it is going through a file, just like we have a cursor, it's this little blinking vertical line. And whenever it reads a line, it puts the cursor at the end of that line. And then you read another line and it moves the cursor through that line as well. Yep. So you don't have to tell it to go to the next one. It just automatically does it. So very nice. All right, I'm just checking to see if I have any questions sent to me. If you have questions, see, please let me know. All right. So that is our big, broad overview of files. And I'm pretty sure I put in links to the W3 Schools documentation of files in Python. It's one of those things that if you don't remember exactly how to do it, you can always look it up. So a lot of things in Python, you learn in a class or something, and then you do it for your class, and then several months later, you actually have to do something that was related to that, and you think, oh, I remember learning that, but I don't remember the exact way to do that. And then you end up Googling it anyway. So my point is that I don't want you to get stressed out if you're not remembering exactly every little detail of this. I just want you to kind of broadly understand it. So we did that. I'm not going to do this one yet, but if you're curious, you can reach out to me. So what someone requested is that we go over this task. So what I wanted you to do was to write a function that creates a file. The function should take one argument, the file name. After creating this file, it should write 3 lines of text to the file. The content doesn't matter. I just want to see that you can create the file. Don't forget to close it. And then I want you to call that function in main. So throw back to our learning how to write functions. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this. All right, I'm erasing this. I'll cut it. So if you need it again, I can paste it back in. But okay, so first we want to write a function. So what do we do? What do we need to do up here if we want to define our own function? So we have our main function. Yep, exactly. Yeah, I like that. Any name. Yep. So we're going to say def, and then my function. Let's see. We want it to create a file. So I'm going to call it create file. And then we want it to take in one argument, the file name. So I'm going to call that argument file name. So we're defining this. Going back to here. So you create a file, should take one argument, the file name. So we've done this. So the function needs to create the file and write 3 lines of text. So if you just want to create a file, yeah. So if you just want to create a file, we can say file object equals open file name, because that is going to be a string up here. And then we want it to be write, because we don't need to read it. So we're making it. So if this file name that we give already exists, it will overwrite it. If it doesn't exist, it will create it. Oops, I don't need that colon there. We're going to write 3 lines. So I'm just going to do dot write. So if we want to write something, we can use fo dot write. Just going to do hello. And then if you call this again, it should go to you need to make sure that you do your \n so that it goes to the next line. All right. Well, again, \n to go to the next line. fo.write. I keep getting outside the quotes. This is the last line. And my cat is walking across my computer, so you may see him shortly. Okay, so we have opened our file. I'm going to give this some space so we can see it easier. So we've opened our file for writing. We have written 3 lines. And the very last thing that we need to do, who wants to tell me the last thing we need to do in this? Yeah, we have a lot of cat fans in this class. So always close your file. Yeah, exactly. We got people telling me you need to close it. Yep. So let's see if we did everything. So take one argument, the file name, create the file, write 3 lines of code. Don't forget to close it, then call the function in main. So now all we have left to do is call that function in main. So I'm going to say, let's see, create file, and then whatever we want our file name to be. So I'm going to say my file.txt. And if we run this, it doesn't print anything because we haven't asked it to, but you can see over here, it did create, oh, here it is, my_file.txt. We open that, it says hello, hello again, and this is the last line. That's exactly what we wrote. So very exciting. It is pretty useful to be able to programmatically create files, especially if you're writing like web page content or something. Some people like to do that. So are there any questions for me on this? I see some people, someone said that they're a dog person. That's okay. I like dogs too. I just don't want to own a dog. Too much work. Okay, so any questions on this task here? Yeah, I'm glad we're learning stuff. So if that helps, I'm very glad. Okay. All right, so as always, send me messages and stuff if you need a little bit of time to think about this and come up with a question or digest this a bit, let me know. We're about halfway through, which is perfect timing to move on to importing libraries. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So far we've just been working with our code. We haven't used any outside code. We've used all code that we've written ourselves. But if we want to do something very special, like read in data or make graphs, or I know a lot of you are interested in writing games. You can write very basic games. You can't just, well, maybe you could, but it's harder to do it with just basic Python, when you download Python or you use it on Replit, just using the basic Python commands. It's a little hard. So there's actually extra functions that you could use that aren't included in basic Python. And these are just custom, oh, here's my cat. Here he is. He wants to be a part of class today. So libraries are just pieces of code that other people have written. Sometimes companies write them, sometimes individuals write them, and they share them with the world to be able to use in Python. So they're very useful. A lot of working code today uses libraries. So this is probably one of the most useful things that you'll learn in this class is how to use these libraries. And it's not too difficult. Yeah, my cat is named SoundCloud. It's because he was named Cloud at the shelter. Here, I'll get him up. Ow, he's biting me. It's a love bite, don't worry. He was named Cloud at the shelter, but he yells a lot, so we started calling him SoundCloud. Ow, okay. He's out of control. Sorry, I'm being attacked by my cat. All right, go away. Anyway, so we want to learn about using these libraries. So usually you'll download or install these on your computer in addition to Python using a program called pip, or some people use conda. It's very easy. You just go to the terminal and you type something like pip install and then the name of the package that you want. Some versions of Python actually already have common libraries installed. It really just depends on what version of Python you've installed. The ones that we've been using on Replit, since we use their Python template, they usually have these libraries already installed. So we won't really need to learn how to install them. But if you're ever wanting to use a library that you're not familiar with, you can always just Google how to install and then the name of that library. Oh, I like that, naming the dog Subwoofer. That is great. All right, sorry, just checking the chat to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, yep, just discussions about cats. So some of these common libraries are called Pandas, Matplotlib, Numpy. These are ones that are very common, especially in data science, but a lot of people using Python use these. So if we want to use a library, first you have to import it with the import keyword. So what you do is typically at the very top of your file, you'll say import and then the name of the library. So one really basic one is called math, and it just includes extra math functions like sine, cosine. It includes constant numbers like pi and e. And so if you want to use stuff like that, you import math, and then you can use those functions that come with the math library in your code. So some people say they don't want to type out the whole thing, so the whole name. This is more of a problem with packages like matplotlib or scikit-learn that have really long names. So you can rename it too. You can say import math as, then give it a shorter name. If this isn't going to be a string or anything, you're kind of assigning it to like an alias or a variable. So you can say import math as m. I don't really see people do this as much, but a lot of people do this second one, which is import pandas as pd. That sounds very strange if you don't know what pandas is, but it's a very common package for data science. So you can say import pandas as pd. And this just lets you then use that in this abbreviation. So it won't recognize pandas anymore, it just recognizes this abbreviation here. All right, I'm seeing a lot of stuff come into the chat. Yeah, so I'm seeing random and turtle are also packages that are popular. Time, yep. Okay. No, panda docs and pandas are very different. They're not the same thing, but they have similar names. Maybe they were made by the same people, I don't know. So we talked about kind of what libraries are, but how do you use them is kind of just what we want to do. So first you need to import the library with the import keyword. And then if you want to access a specific, it's usually called a class, which we haven't talked about, but that just know that it's kind of called a class. You access this by appending a dot to the end of the library name, and then followed by the name of the class you want, or sometimes it's a function. So with our math example, we say import math. And then if we want to use pi in our own code, we can say pi equals math dot pi. So pi is an actual constant or variable defined in the math module, and you access it with this dot. So you say math dot pi. And then if we print pi, it will print whatever the math module has saved as the number pi. Checking out my cat. He's being an agent of chaos today. So another thing to know about libraries is you can also use the from keyword. So this is used usually when you just want to access just one thing from a library. You won't want anything else, so you don't want to deal with like dots. So you say from math import pi, and then you can just use pi. You don't have to say math.pi. So this is used when you just want to import one thing. But you don't have to do that. You could always just do import math and then math.pi. But if you just want one thing, you could say from math import pi. And then if you print pi, it will print out. So we'll do some examples with this so you can kind of see. All right. So I will put this example back here. I'll put this example back here. But so when you import modules, usually do it at the top here. That's not required, but it's recommended when writing Python code. So you put it just at the top, say import math. And then in our main function, we want to use it. We can say pi equals math.pi and then print pi. And it should print whatever math.pi has saved as pi. Oh, replit has crashed. Let's redo that. Reload. I think it's because I left it for too long. It got lonely. Okay, whoops, it erased that. Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, so we're going to import math. And then if we want to use the variable pi, we can say pi equals math.pi. And then print pi. Please work. Yay! And now it prints out pi. So you really have to know these classes or extra parts of the library that you're accessing. So what you can do typically is just Google it. So if we want to learn more, we can say Python math library. And you'll see, usually it's docs.python.org. Another good one is called PyPy, like P-I-P-Y or something like that. But this just tells you kind of some functions that the math module has. So let's see. One that is a good example is math.exp that raises e to the power of x. Math.log. So this just kind of tells you how to use these. So learning how to read these documentations is very useful. So we just did math.py. So another one that a bunch of people have been asking is about making Python wait a couple seconds before printing something. I think some people were trying to make things that are similar to menus in games for loading icons and stuff. And the module that you want to use for this is time. So if we want to have Python print something and then wait a couple seconds, we can use the time module. And the way you can do this is do time.sleep, open and close parentheses, and then inside this parentheses, you can put a number. And that number, I believe, is seconds. It might be a different unit, but it's a unit of time for Python to wait. So, and then we can print hello again. So another example of importing something and then using a function inside that module. So now if we run this, it prints hello, and it waits, and prints hello again. So, yep. And so someone says, wait, does Python recognize pi as a number? So it doesn't. So if you just had your normal code, so I'm going to make another section here. Yeah, so I printed pi. So pi here was just the name of my variable. I was able to use it because of the math module. So yeah, import math, and then we can call it whatever we want. So we could say my number equals math.pi. And then print my number. So it's going to print this other stuff too, but waiting. And then it prints pi. Yeah. So that's how you're able to access numbers like pi or e, stuff like that. Yes. So I see. So could you just say print math.pi? And you can make sure it's pi, not py, but py would be a file. But so yeah, you can just print that directly. So yeah, you're used to putting the .py. Doesn't make sense. Cat again. Okay, so yeah, that is just kind of an overview of using. Okay, and if we want to, so if we go back to the, let's see, do I have a different example besides math import 5? Okay. So people don't really do this with the math module, but we could try with time. So if you want to give time a nickname, you don't want to type time, even though that's 4 letters, that's not a whole bunch, but you could say import time as t. And now this time.sleep won't work because it only recognizes t because we've renamed it up here. So if we want to rename that, and then we can say t.sleep 5.
Yep, t.sleep.
Yep. So I don't see this one used as much usually. So other ones that people use where they abbreviate them are import pandas as PD, or import numpy as np. So on Thursday, we will talk a bit about pandas and numpy if we have time. So, but in the meantime, if you're curious, you can look those up. Okay. Yeah, numpy sounds funny. Yeah, I used to pronounce it numpy. But I think it's technically numpy, but I think numpy is funnier. Okay, and then another one that we talked about was, okay, so if we wanted to do the from keyword, so if all we're going to use from the time module is just sleep, we can say from time import sleep. And then we don't have to do the dot. We can just say sleep 5. And then this will run now because we told it just go into time and import sleep. Don't import anything else. So now we can just directly use that sleep function. So just like that. So that's just kind of an overview of using libraries. There's not a whole lot that you need to remember as long as you know to say to use the import keyword, import math, and then to use it, use the dot. And I see a question, what is NumPy? We'll talk, I have some descriptions of these packages at the end, but NumPy is just a really popular math library. I think we'll probably talk about that pretty soon. Okay, yeah, so if we use the from keyword, then you can just print pi directly. If you say from math, import pi. So I've also gotten a lot of questions about how can you use custom libraries? How can I write my own library and then use that in my other Python file? And you can do this. So you can create and then import your own libraries. What you do is you save all of your custom functions to one .py file. Sometimes you can do more than one, but the easiest way is to just save it to one .py file. Make sure it's in the same directory as your other file that's going to be importing it. As I said, this is just the simplest version to do this, so I'm not going to go into a ton of details on how you could have it from anywhere. And then you're going to import just as normal, using the file name that you gave it without the .py part. So just like here, we don't have from math.py, math.py import pi. We have just from math import pi. So if we can just import it with the file name. So if I have a file named mymodule.py, in the same directory, I create another Python file and I want to use my module. So I write this code. Oh, sorry, that was my cat destroying things. Yeah, kicking off. Okay. So I have a file named mymodule.py, and in the same directory, I'm going to create another Python file and use my module. So I write this code, import my module. So that's how you can do custom libraries. I don't do this very often. Very rarely. So unless you really want to be making your own custom library for something that hasn't been done before, you won't really need to use this. But if you just want to do it just to figure out how to do it, then go for it. Okay, can you import files from other languages and convert them to be run in Python? Not easily, no. So you can't like automatically convert anything into Python. You can, I'm just going to say no there. I don't want to get into that. No, not in the scope of this class, you cannot. I would, if you really want to know, I would just Google that. But I don't know of a way that's simple. Yeah, you could manually convert them. Yeah, someone is saying you can manually do it. Or you could also just use Python to run a command that calls a script in a different language, but I don't really know why you would want to do that. Okay, and then some people are talking about NumPy. Yep. All right. Okay, so then okay, yeah, someone said if you're writing an engine, you would want to do that. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so some useful libraries. We talked about time and math, but some really useful ones that I use regularly. We have OS, which stands for operating system. This is for executing terminal commands with Python. If you are interested in this, definitely look up the documentation. You can call OS and then use it to give your computer commands. So just like the ones that we learned at the very beginning of the summer with ls and change directory and stuff, you can execute those in Python using the OS module. The next one is Pandas, which is used a lot in data science for loading data. It's really easy to load CSV files, stuff like that. Matplotlib. This is one that would be a good one to have an abbreviation. Most people say import matplotlib as MPL. So there's a good one as an example. But anyway, matplotlib is used for plotting data. So really good at making really pretty plots. Yep, some people are familiar with that one. Numpy, that I mentioned before, is used a lot for linear algebra. Anytime you need to work with an array or a matrix or something, it's really good with that. It's used a lot in machine learning because machine learning has a lot of linear algebra in it. And then sklearn, which stands for scikit-learn. That's a really good machine learning library. If you're new to machine learning and you want to start learning it, I would start with this library here, sklearn. Okay, and looking at the time, looks like we're on track. So that's just pretty much an overview of libraries. There's not a ton there as long as you know how to use them. So does anyone have any questions? And I see a request to look at some code. Yes, share that with me and I will look at it. Thank you. But are there any questions about libraries right now? I'm gonna take a sip of water. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions about libraries. So I wanted to introduce to you our final task. I wanted to come up with something slightly larger that puts together a lot of the things that we've learned. And the course that I talk about all the time that's on Free Code Camp has 5 projects. If you complete all 5 projects, they give you a certificate that says you know Python. It's like you completed the Python certificate course or something. So if you're looking to get jobs in Python or jobs as a coder or something, those are very good things to do, is do things that give you those certificates. You should be able to do pretty much all of them after this course. The one thing that we didn't talk about in this class is classes. But if you go through some of the modules on there that we didn't discuss, you should be okay. But anyway, so there's 5 projects that you complete to get the certificate. And I just pulled out one that I thought would be useful that kind of puts together everything we've learned. So this is called the arithmetic formatter problem. And I encourage you to try it out. We'll talk about it a bit. So if you click on that link and pull it up, and someone says, do we have to do this project or not? I mean, you don't have to do anything. So this class is whatever you want to make it. There's no way I can grade you or I can't tell you to do anything. So if you want to do this project, then feel free. If you say no, I don't want to do that, then don't do it. So yeah, so I really love these challenges. They're super neat, and they really combine a lot of the things that we've learned. They even have a link here. Working on the project, they use Replit as well. So yay, Replit comes in handy. But they have like some starter code. I'll have to look at it. That has changed since I did this. But I've done a couple of their courses and their certificates. But anyway, so this problem is about arranging math arithmetic equations into ways that you might write it on a piece of paper. So if you're given this 32 plus 698, it wants your program to output a formatted string that looks like this. So you can see we're going to be using some string formatting. We're going to be doing some, it says if it has another argument where if it's set to true, it does, it actually prints the solution to this. And then if it's set to false, it just prints the equation. So I'm not going to read over this whole thing. If you're interested in doing this, then for sure do it. There's a link here for submitting it. You submit your Replit repo, and then you can submit it here by submitting your code, then saying, I completed this challenge. You can get a hint if you want, ask for help. I don't exactly know what happens if you press these buttons. But if you want a hint or help, you can do that. You can also reach out to me. So I encourage you to look over this and try to complete it if you want. I can't show the answer for this problem, so normally when I give you a task, I also go over how to do it in the next class. I can't do that for this problem because it's part of their certificate course. And so if you saw my solution, then you could take my solution and turn it in. So that gives an ethical dilemma there. But if you do this project and then you want feedback, feel free to share it with me. On Replit, there's like a share button where you can, let's see if it's on here. Yeah, you can say invite. And then you can search me. I